You know, we all went through that terrible thing, the pandemic, a couple of years ago. And of course, it was very difficult for so many people around the world, not just literally at the time, but the ongoing battles, the whole thing that left so many people bereft, naturally without loved ones, and all that sort of stuff. You know, it just doesn't stop because then the media move on from that particular story. But it's interesting, isn't it, how the media paint individuals' stories. You know what I mean? They decide to go literally all the while for them. It's a little bit like over here in the United Kingdom right now. Currently, Russell Brand is getting a very difficult time. Now, I'm a professional. I wouldn't possibly comment on this particular situation until we know more information. All you've got so far are people's accusations, not both sides of the story. But of course, when you look at it now, obviously certain people, particularly the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, do their very best to attack people in high power. Now they've turned their attentions once again to the former British Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Boris Johnson. And the reason being is that they've put together a documentary all about how he coped with, after and during said pandemic. Now let's not forget that this was a man that went through his own COVID battle and almost died, to the point that the Deputy Prime Minister at the time, Dominic Raab, had to draft said letter to present to Her Majesty the Queen, simply because this was the situation. That's how grave it was. But of course, this being the BBC, they really want to attack certain individuals, and I don't say that lightly. You see, what I find fascinating about this particular story is they wait until certain people are out of power, but not too long, and then instantly basically say, right, you know, we'll do it now. Now, let's not forget that the BBC were no friend of the Prime Minister at the time. They wanted to defund the BBC and make them self-funding. So you can understand now why they've waited for this particular opportune moment. But as ever with the BBC, it's never across the board. You never see any documentaries about the Green Party, the Liberal Democrats, the Labour Party. They simply just pick on one. But this particular documentary also focuses on our late and wonderful monarch, Her Majesty the Queen. And according to this documentary, the Queen was advised to have a very quiet word at those weekly audience swids, whether that be at Windsor or indeed at Buckingham Palace, with Boris Johnson, about his conduct, his behaviour during said period of the pandemic. Now, I've done my own investigation into this, and as everybody knows, I've interviewed all the main players, got to know all the main political movers and shakers in my other role as a political reporter. What's interesting is when you dig a little bit deeper, there is simply no record of our late and wonderful monarch ever being approached by any of her courtiers, or indeed spoken to very lightly regarding Mr. Johnson's conduct. In fact, she thoroughly enjoyed his visits because he was a little bit, shall we say, off kilter, cheered her up, was very well read. They discussed books apparently on certain occasions. So it's interesting to note, isn't it, that even though the truth is there if you want to dig a little bit deeper, the BBC, in their ventedness to attack the former British Prime Minister, and let's not forget rope in our wonderful monarch of 70 plus years, well, this is all for entertainment, never really about the truth. And as I said, if you dug a little bit deeper, anybody could find exactly what and how our late and wonderful monarch thought of Boris Johnson. As ever, it is a developing story. When I know more, you'll know more. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.